Did you know that Meghan Sussex, a remarkable and accomplished woman, was banned from a conversation about her life? Yes, you heard it right. This conversation was about her life, her marriage, her child, and her future, yet she was barred from participating. An intriguing revelation, isn't it? This is the story of the Sandringham Summit, an event that was meant to decide the future of Harry and Meghan. However, it turned out to be more of a let's decide Harry and Meghan's future without Meghan kind of meeting. An interesting twist, isn't it? Channel 5's new documentary, Megxit, Inside the Sandringham Summit, confirms this shocking fact. It sheds light on the realities behind the closed doors of the royal fortress. The documentary reveals what the Sussex squad had already known. They were afraid of Meghan Sussex because she's smart. Now, we aren't implying that our beloved Prince Harry isn't smart. In fact, the two of them are both incredibly intelligent, which is why the media, driven by some royalists, is against them. But let's get this straight. They didn't want Meghan Sussex in the room not because she was a problem, but because she was intelligent, focused, strategic, and wouldn't be manipulated. Meghan Sussex understood her worth. She knew how the system worked. She was aware of the cracks in the monarchy's foundation, and unlike those born into it, she wasn't going to play along to preserve the illusion. When this high-stakes meeting at Sandringham was called, she requested to participate from Canada, but they said no. As journalist Emily Andrews stated in the documentary, they all knew Meghan Sussex was probably smarter. They thought they'd get a better outcome with just Harry. In simple terms, they wanted Harry alone, easier to pressure, easier to gaslight. They didn't want a partner, they wanted a pawn. They didn't want Meghan Sussex in the room because she's intelligent, focused, strategic, and wouldn't be manipulated. They feared her intelligence, and we celebrate it. They tried to silence her, and she built a louder microphone. They tried to shut her out, and now she's got global platforms and pineapple tutorials, honey. The problem was never Meghan Sussex. The problem was always that Meghan Sussex couldn't be controlled. This was the crux of the issue, the real problem at hand. Meghan Sussex, a woman of strength, intelligence, and integrity, knew her worth. She understood the value she brought to the table. She saw the system for what it was, a centuries-old institution riddled with cracks and desperately clinging on to outdated norms. In the lead-up to the Sandringham Summit, Meghan requested to participate, to have her voice heard in a meeting that was about her life, her future, yet she was denied. Why? The answer is simple. It was about control. The monarchy wanted to steer the narrative, to mold the story in a way that suited them. They wanted to have the upper hand, to dictate the terms without any resistance. They feared Meghan's presence in the meeting would disrupt their plan, as she was no pushover. She had the ability to challenge their views, to question their motives, to demand for what was rightfully hers. But Meghan was not just a challenge, she was a threat to the status quo. She was a woman who dared to stand up for herself, who dared to question, who dared to demand better. She was not just a royal, she was a force to be reckoned with. She was not someone who could be easily manipulated or controlled. She was a woman who knew her worth and wasn't afraid to fight for it. This was the issue at hand. Meghan Sussex was not the problem. The problem was the monarchy's inability to accept a woman who refused to be controlled, who refused to be silenced, who refused to be anything less than what she was. A strong, independent, intelligent woman. In the end, what the monarchy wanted was a pawn, someone they could manipulate and control to suit their narrative. What they got instead was a partner, a woman who refused to be anything less than an equal. They wanted a pawn, not a partner. This was the real problem. The problem was never Meghan Sussex. The problem was always that Meghan Sussex couldn't be controlled. They weren't worried about security. They were worried about accountability. This isn't just a punchy opener, it's the absolute truth. The royal family's decision to exclude Meghan Sussex from the conversation wasn't about leaks or potential eavesdroppers. It was about avoiding the uncomfortable reality of a woman who wouldn't be silenced, who wouldn't be pushed around, and who wouldn't accept vague promises and empty words. Meghan Sussex, with her intelligence, her drive, her vision, represented a level of accountability that the royal family simply wasn't prepared for. She wouldn't just sit passively and nod along to their plans. She'd demand specifics. She'd demand fairness. She'd demand transparency. This isn't just conjecture, it's backed up by the facts. Journalist Emily Andrews in the Channel 5 documentary Megxit Inside the Sandringham Summit confirmed it. The royal family thought they'd have an easier time dealing with Harry alone, without Meghan's formidable intelligence and unyielding determination in the mix. They didn't want an equal partner in the discussion. They wanted a pawn they could manipulate to their liking. But Meghan Sussex isn't a pawn. She's a queen in her own right, and she refused to be treated as anything less. And let's just put to rest any notion that this was about maintaining the confidentiality of the meeting. The royal family's private conversations have been leaked more times than we can count. If they were genuinely concerned about security, they would have taken steps to address this long before the Sandringham Summit. No, this wasn't about security. It was about fear. Fear of a woman who wouldn't back down. Fear of a woman who would demand that they face the reality of their actions and decisions. Fear of a woman who would hold them accountable. Because in the end, nothing scares an old institution like the monarchy more than a woman who refuses to be silenced. A woman who won't stay silent scares an old institution more than a scandal. Imagine a conversation about the future of your life and you aren't invited to have a seat at the table. How does that make you feel? Excluded? Marginalized? Well, that's exactly how Meghan Sussex must have felt when she wasn't allowed to participate in a conversation that was all about her life and her future. This wasn't just a snub. This was an act of strategic silencing. Consider the audacity of it. Here we have Meghan Sussex, a woman of accomplishments and global influence, intentionally kept out of a conversation about her own destiny. It's not just disrespectful, it's dehumanizing. The message was clear. We're going to talk about you, but we don't want to hear from you. But this wasn't about Meghan being problematic. It was about Meghan being uncontrollable. A woman who knew her worth, understood the system, and refused to play along just to maintain an illusion. They didn't want her voice in that room because her voice carried power, intelligence, and a refusal to be manipulated. And let's not kid ourselves. This wasn't about security or confidentiality. This family has had private discussions leaked faster than a royal wedding announcement. No, they weren't worried about who might be in Meghan's kitchen. They were worried about accountability. If Meghan Sussex had been in that room, she would have demanded transparency, equity, and a concrete plan, not vague promises and manipulative flattery. And that's what scared them the most. An institution steeped in tradition and protocol, afraid of a woman who wouldn't stay silent. The monarchy could have evolved, it could have modernized, it could have embraced Meghan Sussex as the asset she is, but instead, they chose to silence her. They feared her intelligence. They tried to isolate her, but she refused to be silenced. Now, she has a louder microphone and a global platform. And we celebrate her for it. Because the monarchy's loss is our gain. And Meghan Sussex, she's just getting started. The monarchy could have evolved, modernized, and embraced Meghan Sussex as the asset she is. They feared her intelligence, and we celebrate it. That's right, folks. The very thing that was supposed to be her downfall became her stepping stone to success. When faced with attempts to silence her, Meghan Sussex didn't cower. Instead, she used her intelligence and resourcefulness to rise above the noise. She took the whispers and turned them into a roar, amplifying her voice instead of letting it be drowned out. One of the most significant ways she did this was by leveraging her global platform. Meghan understood the power of her voice and the influence she wielded. She didn't let the royal family's attempts to sideline her stop her from speaking out on issues close to her heart. She built a louder microphone, one that didn't rely on royal approval or traditional media outlets. She started speaking on her own terms, using social platforms and interviews to share her message. And in doing so, she reached a wider audience than ever before. Meghan didn't just stop at amplifying her voice. She used her newfound platform to create opportunities for others. She's given a voice to those who often go unheard, championing causes like mental health awareness, gender equality, and racial justice. And boy, has she made an impact. Her work has inspired countless individuals around the world, showing them that it's possible to overcome obstacles and make a difference. They tried to shut her out, but Meghan found a way in. Now she's not just in the room. She's leading the conversation, and she's using her platform to bring about real, tangible change. But it's not just about the big, global platforms. Meghan Sussex has also found joy in the smaller, more personal moments. She shared her love for cooking, her passion for gardening, and yes, even her pineapple tutorials. In the face of adversity, Meghan Sussex chose not to be silenced. Instead, she chose to speak louder, to fight harder, and to shine brighter. And that's something we can all celebrate. Thank you for watching this video. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to our channel, Royal Telly, that celebrates and supports the amazing work of the Sussexes.